Hi everyone. We're going to be going over another example on unit testing with Jest. So I just opened up a brand new Visual Studio, and I'm going to go to my desktop, and I'm just going to make a brand new folder, and I'll just call it example. And what I'll do is I'll just drag and drop it over. And inside this example folder, I want to start setting up all of these unit tests so I have all the files and folders properly set up. So let's go to the terminal, new terminal. And what we want to do in here in this terminal is we need to run a few commands here. So we need to install npm init --y. So when you do that command, you should get a package.json. And inside this package.json, you'll be given the example from the previous lectures on how to just grab this JSON setup for the package.json file, and you'll just essentially make sure that it uses Jest -- coverage, so then we can see Jest and see if the unit tests are working with the JavaScript files that we are setting up. And right here, what we want to do is after we install the first command, we need to do the next one. So npm install --save -dev and Jest, because we now need to make sure we install Jest in our project. And what we want to do now is here you can see that we have the node modules and we have the package lock.json once you set it all up. So now that we have our node modules and all our packages set up, we need to now set up one more thing. So depending on if you have installed this already on your computer or not, but in the documentation that I provided already, there's the command to either install Jest on your computer on a Windows or a Mac. I already have mine installed, so I'm just not gonna have to do that, but you can double check step 4 if you need to install it on your computer. And we need to run the code using the following. So we're not going to run the code just yet, but we are going to set up the folders. So we need to do __test __, enter. And that just sets up our tests folder and where we need to put the unit tests in. And then we're going to make another folder, and I'm going to call this JavaScript. So what we're doing here is the tests contain all the tests, which will be referencing all the code in our JavaScript folder. And we need to write our actual code in the JavaScript folder, so we pass all the unit tests. So let's actually grab the tests that we want to do. So I'll provide the tests for you on the actual exam or like test day. And what I want to do is I just want to drag and drop the actual files that I want, the file that I want into the test folder. So let me open it up. So in here we got all of our stuff set up just like in Visual Studio. In the test folder here, I'm just going to drag and drop this file over, the test that is already completed and ready for me to use. So as you can see here, the test folder contains the actual test.js file. And in the JavaScript file, in the actual JavaScript folder, this is where I'm going to create my code. But let's first look here in object.test.js. It says it's going to have to require an object.js file. and this object.js file will be in the JavaScript folder. So inside our JavaScript folder, let's go and create a file, and we'll call it object.js. And now you can see the .test.js files, they are represented in like an orange color in Visual Studio, whereas the JavaScript actual code that we are writing, .js files, are shown up in this yellow type color. And this is what also kind of distinguishes the difference between tests and just our actual JavaScript. And what we want to do in here is we want to start setting up our actual code now. So in our objects.js file, we have to start setting up some sort of function. But let's look at our test file. And inside our test file, we know that it's referencing this location inside the JavaScript folder, and it's referencing the file called object, and this is the object.js file we just created. And here for the actual test here, what it's saying is this is just a random message for us for unit testing, and we're just saying that this is an object example. But what we're doing here is we're expecting this object has no parameters, and to be, we have to have this sentence returned. So we have to make sure that whatever it has to be is an exact match. So first let's set up the actual function. This function is actually referenced right here. It's expecting the function to be object. So let's set this up. Function object. And what we want to do is now set up this object. So I'm just going to give you an example. So let's say we have a keyboard, and this keyboard is $50. And let's say we have maybe we have leftover cash. So after this, let's say we want to initialize a piggy bank. So var piggy bank is equal to an empty object. And inside this piggy bank, we are going to add some type of money. So let's add piggy bank dot. So we want to add some kind of key, which is $10 bills is equal to 30.00. So the $10 bills make up $30. And then let's say piggy bank dot $5 bills make up a total of $10. So that means we have 3 $10 bills that make up 30 and 2 $5 bills that make a total of 10. And we can just console.log this piggy bank so we could see it in our console log in the terminal. And let's actually do this first. And before we do anything else, let's just return just anything, it doesn't matter, just so we could run this. And before we run it, we do actually have to add something else, but let's actually just run it right now so you could see the error. npm test. So when you run this npm test, it will look through all the tests and it'll tell you whether or not you have passed or failed. And when you check this part here, when you check this part right down here, these are the two most important areas because it'll tell you whether or not the test suites or tests that you have that has been provided to you, that you have passed it based on the requirements. but if you have not passed it, it will be a red color. And if you did pass it, it will be a green color and it will say that you passed instead of failed. So based on this console log, we should see something about a piggy bank. The piggy bank though is empty, so we will most likely not see anything. And if we scroll around here in the terminal, so it says object is not a function. So first thing is that it can't even read this function anyways because we didn't export the module. So we need to actually do something here at the bottom, and we need to do module.exports is equal to whatever the name of the function is, which is object, and that's all you have to put. So sometimes this module.export is also represented as this object. So this is just like two different ways of going about it. So it's really up to you, like how you want to set it up. But I would prefer just the simple way, which is just referencing the object or like the name of the function itself. I just called this function called object, and it's just exporting this function. And let's save it, and I'm going to run this test one more time here. So right over here, it's saying it expected this sentence, but it received an empty string, which is why we returned an empty string, because there is something wrong with it. And if we look through here, we did a console log, which is right here. And inside this console log, okay, because we did it after we added some key value pairs, we are going to get something in our piggy bank. So in our piggy bank, you can see the $10 bills is equal to 30 and $5 bills is equal to 10. So this is what the object will display, is the key value pairs that have been added into the piggy bank from this console log. That is how we are able to see this result inside the terminal. And what we want to do after this is, let's say we want to see how much leftover cash we have based on what our piggy bank has, to see if we are actually able to buy the keyboard that we want to get. So leftover cash is equal to piggy bank dot $10 bills plus piggy bank dot $5 bills minus whatever the cost of the keyboard is, because we want to add how much money we have in total. So 30 plus 10 is 40. So if we have $40 to spend and the keyboard is $50, do we really have enough money or leftover cash to actually spend on any of this? First off, what we have to do is we actually do have to initialize the leftover cash. So let's just put var leftover cash equals to 0. So at least this is initialized for us. Do the addition and subtraction that we need in order to check if we have a positive cash flow, if we have positive cash or negative cash, to determine whether or not we can afford what we want to buy. So let's console log the leftover cash. And if the leftover cash is greater than 0, that means it's positive, so we do have enough money to buy this keyboard. Then we want to return something first. let's get rid of this return because we don't need this empty one anymore. So if we have a positive one, we also need to check else. If it's not positive, the only other option would be if it's negative. So this else could return something as well. And if we say this is greater than 0, we could also say greater than or equal to 0, because then we're insinuating that the total amount of money that we did have basically was spent on everything that we want to purchase, and we're just left with $0 overall. So in the return, this is where we can set up our sentence. So I'm going to use backticks, and I'll say I have something. So how I know how we need to set up this sentence is if we go here in our terminal as well, we can actually see what type of sentence or how the sentence should be structured. So when you scroll up, you should see expected and received. So when you look at the expected and receive, you'll see this is the sentence that it's requiring that we return in order to pass the test. The reason it's expecting this exact sentence is because it is actually in the test here itself. So this is where the .2b is saying that whatever is returned has to be this exact sentence. And this is why we're saying it's expected that it says this entire thing. So we need to return this somehow. So let's go back to the object. And what I'm gonna do is actually, whatever is expected, I'm just going to put this in a line here so we could actually format it properly. I'm going to format it properly here, so I put this right there. And it says I have $30. So if we want the $sign, we have to put another $sign in front of it in order to keep it. And then we need to do piggy bank dot $10 bills. So $30 worth of $10 bills. $10 bills, and now we want $10 worth of $5 bills. So piggy bank dot $5 bills, and has to be a period right there, and I'll say I do not have enough money. And I'm just going to try this first so you guys could see the error still that's happening. I'm going to run this test right here. So there's still something that's missing. And you will see right over here, when I run it, what is actually missing still. So I'll run npm test. So there's also something else that we did not set up properly. So when we're saying we have positive leftover cash, that means we need to set this one up properly. So this would say I do have enough money. I do have enough money. But still, when we look over here, it's still going to give us the error because it expected this and we received undefined because leftover cash is negative right now because 30 plus 10 is 40, and we have to actually spend $50 to pay off the keyboard. So that means we're at a negative $10 right now. So that means it's not positive, and it's the else because it's a negative. And what we have to do here is we actually have to set up it does not equal. So I could just take this entire sentence that I already wrote and then copy it right there. And I have to set up this sentence because this is what is being expected. So I do not have enough money. But let me try running this now. So right over here it says I have $30 worth of $10 bills, and okay, so first off we're missing a dollar sign in front of 10. So right over here there should be another dollar sign in front of both of these because we're insinuating this is some sort of money. And it says worth of $5 bills. We forgot that part as well. Worth of $5 bills. So let's run it one more time. And if we look right over here, we still failed. We're actually still loading right here. So right over here, you can see it still failed. There's still something wrong. So we could scroll up and it says it expected this sentence, but it has to be spelled exactly correctly, exactly the same. Whatever's being returned has to be exact match in the unit test. So what we're missing here even highlights it for you. It's the period at the end. We're missing that little dot there. So we just need to add a period here at the end of each of these sentences. And now let's save it and see what we get. So right over here, now you can see because we set up the sentence exactly the same, it's an exact match of what it needs to be returned. We actually started to pass the test. This is what shows you right here on the test suites and tests is that you have passed these tests. The reason why there's one is because if we go here back to our actual test folder or file right here, you can see this is the test right here, whatever is written as test. We only have one test inside this file that we need to pass. And that's why we get one green pass. And right over here, when it's talking about uncovered line, so what it's saying here is inside our objects right here, is it's saying that the uncovered line number is 17. So right here, this entire sentence is not even being read. It's not even being used or returned back into the actual test. Because remember, in if and else statements, only one thing is true. So if this is false, it won't even go inside this if statement. It'll skip it. And else just means take whatever else is out there, and just return this sentence. So that's why what it's saying is that on line 17, this is not even being read, it's not being returned, so don't even worry about it. So when we're looking at this, it's basically saying we're setting up a function. This function here is called an object, or whatever name you want to call the function, but it has to match the name of the function in the actual test itself. And we're exporting this function because we want it to communicate back to the unit test. And we go inside our test folder, and what we have here is this object here is our function, whatever we call it. So this object, again, is the function, whatever we want to call that function. And then require is where we actually place the files we actually write the code in. And this one here, inner actual test, the test that I will create for you, is I'm saying just test this, test these examples or test these values and make sure that I get something back. So what I'm expecting is that this object, which is that function name, it's going to be called and it's going to do something in this function. But also the .2b is saying in this function, make sure you do something, and whatever is being returned, 2b is saying make sure it equals to this. Make sure that we have this exact sentence that is being returned back to us. And the reason why we know something is being returned back to us is inside this object.js file is we are using the return wherever it's needed, and we're setting up the proper sentences, the proper formatting. And here at the bottom, you always have to make sure that you export whatever function you have created, and make sure you reference the actual function name.